Hello everyone and welcome back to Agent Nagash channel dedicated to Sigmar, and in this video we're going to be talking about why play Kharadron Overlords. And joining me in this video is going to be Max, who you might have heard lately, who's been in my Zeech videos, but he's also a keen Kharadron Overlord player as he has just recently started the army. So Max, how are you doing today?
Swimmingly. Wonderful.
Brilliant. And right, so this video will be similar to the last few why play videos I've done lately. Like I said, it's a new series, so still learning a few things. But this will be more similar to the one I did with Luke with the Chaos Dwarves, and I think it's only fitting to do a good dwarf army afterwards. I think let's just stay on the theme for dwarves for a little while. There's not guarantee that Fire Slayers is the next episode before we go into that one. Essentially we'll be talking about their strengths and weaknesses, and if you should play them or not, if you're sort of on the fence deciding are they the army for you. So so to kick us off, who are the Kharadron Overlords? And I think you'll probably be best to answer this one, Max. Who are the Kharadron Overlords? Who are these dwarves that fly around in these aircraft and wear top hats?
So, lore-wise, the Kharadron Overlords used to be dispossessed from the realm of metal, who were hit really hard during the Age of Chaos by a huge Tzeentch demon invasion, which warped their fortresses, warped the ground, shook everything they knew, destroyed everything they had. The only way to go to escape from the warping soil beneath their feet was up. So they had a few sky vessels at this point, and all of the people in those large holds had to flee into the sky vessels and take to the skies, because that was the only way to survive. And from those survivors turned then into some sort of nomadic fleets, which wasn't a sustainable lifestyle in the long run. So they began organizing. They came up with a code to rule them, a way to agree on how to behave with one another and with others, and how they could all survive. And they began establishing airports, and it became essentially their new way of life. Being up in the air, being untouchable for everyone beneath them, being safe from the horrors that were back on the ground in the realm of metal. And they began their new society, which they are now very proud of. And the important aspect of them, with Age of Sigmar being so focused on mythology and gods overall, is that they feel very resentful towards the gods for abandoning them during that crucial moment. So they are, I'd say, the only faction in Age of Sigmar that doesn't worship any deity.
Well,
That's the core.
And that, as well, makes them quite separate to your standard dwarves, aren't they? Who very much care about tradition, sort of household, clan, and of course the gods.
Yeah, they actually did away with the concept of clans and heritage. Instead, they replaced it with some sort of cultural resume, which, ironically, kind of reintegrated the concept of lineage by encompassing what your ancestors achieved in that resume. So that kind of shined a light on how mercantile and how corporate their culture is now. They're very to the code, very mercantile, very corporate. And that's very unique in this world. It's very interesting. It's very humoristic, but also very merciless on some points. And that's what I really like about them.
No, they sound great, and definitely different. And you say that's what you like about them. So what exactly attracted you to this army then?
It was two things. First of all, I wanted a shooting army. I always liked a more steampunk aesthetic. They were just looking great. The models look fantastic in my opinion. They're just beautiful, no question about it.
Very different, aren't they?
Yes. Like, when you would put them right next to an elf, you wouldn't immediately guess that they were part of the same game system, and yet they are. So that's cool about them. Also, I like their they're very much to the letter of the code attitude. They are fantasy bureaucrats. That's both funny and cool in the same way, because they always adhere to the letter of the code, but not to its spirit. And
Always
that makes
finding
them
loopholes, aren't they?
Yeah, that makes them unpredictable. They kind of make me think of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Where they one day might turn up with a giant fleet over your little hamlet, loudly proclaim over speakers that the plans to demolish your little village to make room for a new storage facility have been available in the next administrative office of the Skyports for about 10 years, and no one bothered showing up to protest the plans, so they are now going to annihilate your little hamlet.
Which shows, like, you know, obviously Kharadron Overlords, and like same with a lot of the Order armies. You think, well, obviously these guys are good. You know, they want civilization and all that sort of thing. And they, you know, they're dwarves. You know, they're a lot better than, you know, like well, if I get a picture up now of like a bloodthirster attacking an ironclad, you know, they're a lot better than Khorne demons. You know, they're good guys, but they do tend to only care about profit.
Yeah, with them you get a really mixed bag. They are in the end companies, mercantile and military companies, meaning that yes, they will be absolutely necessary for a flourishing society because they can break sieges, they can bring food, they can bring everything you need, they bring trade from realm to realm, they can go where others cannot, and therefore help other cities thrive, but always at their own profit. They are not selfless. Never are. That's not to their nature, and that's against the code. They will build you for whatever they can. And that's just fantastic.
Yeah, which is great, and I think it's nice, and it makes them sort of different. And like you're saying about if you were to compare them to, you know, like I don't know, like say, like, I don't know, a Daughters of Cain Witch Elf may not look like it's part of the same you know fantasy universe as these models, but these models, I know some people really like them, and some people not as much. You know, they think they're too different. But for me, anyway, I think they keep that really on the line with that really good aesthetic look of it looking like steampunk, you know, futuristic a bit, but still in a fantasy setting. They still look fantasy.
Yeah, they kind of look slightly more polished technology-wise than the Skaven, but in the end, it's all still magical technology, or, well, they wouldn't call it magical themselves, but it is, without a doubt. It's made with the stuff of the realms, the ether gold, which is in itself a magical substance, even though, again, they would call it a science that no one bothers to understand.
Yeah.
So they bridge that divide rather well, in my opinion.
And they have very good beard armor as well, don't they?
Well, of course.
Yeah, because I mean, it's a very important part. Right. Okay. So, yeah, they are great, but again, so obviously, a lot of people are collectors when they do Warhammer. They don't play the games as much, but of course, on this channel, we do tend to focus on like gameplay. So, with that most important question, now that we know who the Kharadron Overlords are, what are they like on the table, Max?
They are, as of the newest General's Handbook, fast. They are where they want to be, and there's no stopping them. That's very unique for Dwarven faction, which usually come with a 4-inch movement, and very few ways to change that. The Kharadron Overlords, due to their sky vessels, can redeploy every movement phase, take whatever's in them with them, and whichever has the ability to hitch a ride by attaching themselves to the ship with them. There is absolutely no way of keeping them where you want them to stay. There's some way to limit them, but you cannot possibly lock them down forever. They have relatively few models compared to many other armies, and they're very shooty. This army wins in the movement and shooting phase. It has no magic, limited melee capabilities, but it's very interesting strategically, in my opinion. You have very many decisions regarding positioning, risks, and resource allotment. Due to their special resource, the ether gold, which some of the units get, upon deployment, according to certain conditions and the code that you chose to interpret with your army, pretty much.
Yeah, so which is the cool thing. So, like I say, that they break that normal traditional mold. You think of dwarves as being, like slow, that sort of thing. They are very fast, especially like you're saying, like teleporting shenanigans they can do now with their ships, and you can obviously you can't play the army completely differently. Like if you want to have a really magic focused Kharadron Overlords, then it's not the army for you. But you can with the different codes and the different what do you say they're called? Are they Brax?
They've different skyports.
Skyports, yeah.
Yes. They have a very interestingly many ways of building them with relatively few kits. They all come with special weapons to choose from. So even though they have very few kits, there are many ways of building and playing them. Some are more ideal than others, but they all have their place, in my opinion. It's at this point, I don't think they have been solved or figured out. There is not the one list to rule them all, which makes them very interesting to me.
Yeah, that's which is a great freedom, isn't it? It's like I think I've said I said in the last video, which is the Zeech video, which is uploading as we speak. Something for me is, yes, I have started a Bone Reaper army, and that is very easy, auto-select Petrified Elite to make it the best it can be, so I sound a bit of a hypocrite doing this, but when I bought that Bone Reaper Battle Tome, I also bought the Moor Tribe Battle Tome, and in all honesty, I preferred the Moor Tribe because it hadn't, in my personal thoughts, hadn't been completely unlocked yet in terms of list builds. There's no, forget about that unit, you just want to take a load of these, which you see a lot with, like, if you look at IDNF Deep King, you just spam eels, Legions of the Gash, for a long time people just spammed, Grimghast Reapers. It's nice what you're saying, how Kharadron Overlords haven't got, if you're not picking this list, you're doing it wrong, which is a great freedom.
Also, I think there are many ways of fielding them is due to a very genius, stroke of genius, by Games Workshop, which both rewards small and large companies. When you bring a unit with 10 or more models in it, they gain what's called a share of ether gold, which is part of their allegiance ability, which then can be spent on very powerful abilities. However, larger units might not fit in a sky vessel, might slow down your sky vessels, or cannot even attach to sky vessels flying away, meaning that you have always the option of, do I want that ether gold, or do I want my mobility? You can build either way, no way is wrong, but both have their reasons and both have their advantages. And that's what I think is just fantastic. Maybe you have 300 points left. Maybe you want to bring one unit of 9 Skyriggers. Maybe you want to bring 3 units of 3. And bad example. Let's say 400 points, a unit of 12, 4 units of 3, or maybe 2 units of 6 each. Because, for example, a Sky Vessel can always have 7 models hitching right at once, meaning that the unit of 12 could not follow the Sky Vessel, but has an ether gold to spend, whereas the smaller units can teleport with Sky Vessel, but have no ether gold. That's just an interesting aspect when list building.
Yeah, and that's just really from the sort of start, isn't it? When you first open the book, and to be honest, a lot of that will come down to playtesting, won't it? And because I'll be honest, a lot of people have, I say a lot of people, quite a few people I'd describe as influential people on the internet when the Kharadron Overlord book first came out, have said, it's not very good, it's not a strong book, la 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 la. But what I would say to that is it came out alongside the Siege book, which has now been nerfed a little bit, and it came out alongside a very powerful tournament winning book. And does every book have to be that good? No. Quite frankly, Zeech, in my opinion, was broken, hence why an FAQ has been made for it. An FAQ has deemed not being necessary to be made for the Kharadron Overlords because it is a like you're saying, in honest opinion, pretty good writing from GW.
Yeah, they have no problems in either direction. They're neither pathetically weak, nor are they tremendously powerful. They hit that sweet spot for me, where I say, okay, I'm not being carried by my list. This is not an S plus tier list or book. This is it's strong, but it's not too strong. It can be weak, but it's never too weak.
But it means when you win, it's down to you as the general, the commander, whatever you want to call yourself, not, like you say, the army carrying you all the way.
Very much so. I think the Kharadron Overlords are very much about decision making, because you have limited resources. You have the ether gold and you have your command points, and you have only 5 movement phases per game. So where do you go? When do you spend? What do you spend? On what do you spend? Do you tap that objective? Do you position to flank? Do you position to shoot? Do you actually charge your ship? All these are valid options. And making something wrong can cost you the game, whereas pulling something off your enemy didn't expect can win you a losing match. And I love it.
Yeah, and also because, like we're saying, it's not, S tier, whatever you want to call it. It means that it's probably not an army that is going to be too popular in a good way, in the sense of, for example, how popular Bone Reapers are being run at the moment, other armies, especially at courts, how popular they were. So if you play Kharadron Overlords, I can't say this for every store, but you may be like that one guy in your store that plays Kharadron Overlords.
Yeah, when you don't enjoy mirror matches, you have a very good chance not encountering that problem with the Kharadron Overlords. As of now, as they're not the strongest list, I think they're something of a 46%, what was it, win rate in competitive circles right now, which is good. 50 is where every battle tome should aim.
Yeah, it's that thing, isn't it? If the game was perfect, every army would be 50.
Yes, but that's not going to happen. And just think, this book is still new. It hasn't been solved, meaning the win rate might still go up when people discover the lists they want to bring. But so far that hasn't happened. I think it's good that they have so many options. Many people seem to focus on a specific skyport so far, but I'm not seeing that skyport as being particularly powerful. It's merely convenient.
What skyport's that?
That would be Ziflin, and I think they take it due to the extra mobility on top and the ability to bring frigates as battle line, which makes filling your battle line requirements fairly easy, because you usually want 2 sky vessels capable of ferrying units around. So you could bring 2 sky vessels in ARKANAUT company and have your battle line filled. That's very convenient. It's very quick. That's easing your list building very much. But I don't see it as the only choice. It's certainly not. Other lists, other skyports are just as good as Ziflin, in my opinion.
That's great. And it's something, again, we've mentioned in the past of each video, I think we talked about, where we said it's great to have a book that there's just not one sub-allegiance to go for. There's not, like, for example, like I'll bring up Bone Reapers because it's the freshest in my mind, and in my opinion, it's the most like auto-pick one, is Betchford Elite. Now, that might sound amazing, having a book where you just go, oh, that's obviously the one you take, but it limits your creativity. It goes back to what I was saying, like, there's certain, if you're not taking that list, you're doing it wrong, and it's nice to see with the Kharadron Overlords that they have got that option for you. It's not like, oh, one of them's a hell of a lot better than everyone else, like than the other skyports.
Yeah, and if you like customizations, the Kharadron Overlords can do you one better. You don't even have to run a skyport. You can create your custom code. They have 3 categories to choose from. It was an article, an amendment, and a footnote, and you can run a custom interpretation of the code. So selecting from these 3 categories, which each gives you a rule altering ability, pretty much, a rule additive ability, and a once per game ability, pretty much. And that's just great. Sometimes it's ideal not running a skyport, because skyports tend to lock you into artifacts, into command traits, and sometimes you might not want that. Yes, the abilities are good to have, but sometimes they're not worth the price, especially in smaller point games. It's fun running a custom code.
Exactly, and like I say, if there's not a skyport for you, you can build your own. So with that, let's move on to talking about a bit more of the hobby side. So talking about the model range. So with their model range, they don't have the fewest amount of models an army has, off the top of my head, but you're sort of limited with the war scrolls you've got. Is that sort of fair to say?
Yes, they have very few kits, very few war scrolls. They overall also rather few models. If you prefer painting few models and maybe some very large ones over painting hordes, you might be very happy with this faction. The only unit that comes in increments of 10 are your ARKANAUT company. The others are in increments of 5s and 3s, then heroes, and then sky vessels, which are 1 each. So, no hordes inside.
Definitely. So if we sort of like I say, these videos won't go as much as in depth as the long series, but if we have like sort of a brief thoughts of each unit within the army, what are our sort of thoughts? If we start low and then we'll go up higher. So the sort of, like you say, multiples of 10. What are our thoughts on the Arcanaut Company?
ARKANAUT company are fantastic. I have to say I completely underestimated them before bringing them in my first game with them. I thought, they're 10 models, 1 wound each. They have a 9-inch range. That isn't very exciting. I cannot even put them into a sky vessel and shoot immediately after deep striking because, remember, deep strike is always outside of 9. But they actually really surprised me. Their stat line looks terrible. Well, not terrible. It looks okay. But essentially, what you're paying for is 90 points for 10 wounds with 4-up save that has just is generally hitting and wounding on 4s. But when they are near an objective, wholly with a 9 of an objective, the stat line all of a sudden gets better to 3s and 4s across the board. Also being able to reroll battle shocks. And now remember, even the smallest increment of them for 90 points brings a point of ether gold with them. Meaning that you have, when you really have 1 round or 1 phase where you need them to power through, you can spend that ether gold to supercharge them. Yes. They're very easily underestimated, but they hold. They do what they're meant to do for you. They grab and hold objectives. And they are pretty much the only unit capable of doing so in your book.
I was going to say, because they are, obviously, like we've mentioned, the most sort of like model unit you've got. Would you say that you need these guys to do that as a strategy, to hold those objectives? Or would you say that the Kharadron Overlords can sort of smash whatever's on the objective from shooting or whatever else, tag it and then move on? Or do you need these guys as a bit of an anchor back there, if you pardon the pun?
You don't necessarily need them. The Kharadron Overlords, due to their overwhelming mobility, are very good at tapping unguarded objectives, empty objectives, or just shooting enemies off of lightly guarded objectives and taking those. But you're playing at this point cat and mouse, because armies that will clearly beat you, if you don't have Arkanauts, you're very easily beat by armies like Nurgle that simply outlast you, standing on the points and waiting you out. You have no way of, even though they cannot catch you, you will never take the points from them because they're too resilient when you're playing without Arkanauts. Arkanauts are the one unit you have to contest victory points, to contest objectives. And that's their clearly defined purpose by their ability becoming better wholly with a 9 of objectives. But so they're great, but not quite necessary. But when you think of whether to bring them or not, you should. Their baseline, your only battle line, though the Skyports and the Chairs of General can alter that. So you will see them in most lists, but not in all.
And I think, like I say, what you've mentioned there as well, what's important is that if for any reason you don't like these guys, you don't want to paint that many models, all that sort of thing, there are ways to make your frigate your battle line. So
I can offer a little anecdote about them.
Yep.
In my very first game, I had 2 minimum size units of 10 of them. And one of those 10-man units was charged by, 30 chain rasps, I think. And I thought, oh, damn. These are the only ones holding my objectives. I mean, the ghosts will take it for the turn because they're simply more, but I need these guys to hold so I can shoot the ghosts off of them on my next shooting phase, and reclaim the objectives thereby. So I spent the ether gold to reroll their saves, and a 4-up rerolling save. That's good.
Yeah, because I'm just having a look at their war scroll now, and it is a 4-up, isn't it? It used to be a 5-up, I believe.
Yes, they went down in costs, went up in save, but went down in range. That's pretty much what happens to them.
And they've got... So is there... so, for example, let's say I'm a new player. Well, like, for example, I don't play Kharadron Overlords. So, first I'm looking at the ARKANAUT Company War Scroll, as you can see on the screen now. They have a lot of weapon options. So, like, as a new player, that may look a bit confusing. Have you got a way to sort of summarise to make sense of it all?
It's rather easy since this new battle tome came out. You can only bring one of each per 10. So there's not all that much choice in them anymore, which kind of streamlines the unit. But the easy way of telling is the Sky Pike, the Long Pike is the melee weapon of choice. The Skyhook is meant to snipe monsters. The volley gun is, well, just many crappy shots, but on average, it's gonna do damage.
It looks quite cool as well.
Yes, it adds some nice variety to the unit, having some special weapons in there.
Yeah, it's a nice looking unit in terms of models as well, because like you say, they don't all look the same. None of them really look the same.
Yeah, they have very many different poses, and you can even attach the arms. I mean, you have many different arms, but you can also angle them slightly to result in different poses, which is really nice.
Yeah, which is great. Okay, so that is the ARKANAUT Company. So we were to step it up a bit further, and we're to have a look at their more heavy infantry, which would have to be the GUNHAULER. Is that right? GUNHAULER?
The GRUNDSTOK Thunderers are...
GRUNDSTOK Thunderers, that's it.
Those are their bread and butter unit. In my opinion, this is what makes them work. These guys have a range of 18, and they're gonna be what you want to crew your sky vessels with in most cases. You only have 2 units that can reliably enter sky vessels. That is the GRUNDSTOK Thunderers and the ARKANAUT Company. With I already mentioned, the ARKANAUT Company having a range of 9 makes them unable to shoot immediately after deep striking into where you want to be. Meaning that the GRUNDSTOK Thunderers are the shooty option if you want to shoot out of your vessels.
Yes.
They are fantastic. They went up in price though. They used to be 90 points for 5. Now they're 120 for 5. They gained a wound, so they're 2 wounds each. And their rules changed a bit. Also, they have a lot of special weapons. For a new player, I would just advise them to, when you want to have them in a sky vessel, build them all with rifles. If you want them on the ground, bring one of each special weapon, because they gain a additional rule when they have at least one of each, which adds +1 to hit with those special weapons. That also means, however, that the special weapons without that bonus are rather crap, and when you lose one of them, that bonus is gone. So when you go with special weapons, at least have a 10-man unit, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree. And it's nice they always have 2 wounds as well, have they? Or was that a new thing?
Before that, they had 1 wound each.
Yeah, so it's good they've got 2, because they are, the elite guy. They've got a lot more armor on as well.
Yeah.
And like you say, sorry, I was just going to say, like you say, the extra range on their shooting means that when you teleport the ships 9 inches away from the enemy,
yeah, they can reliably shoot. You can even deploy a bit further away when you build them with rifles, because a range of 18 against slower units, that makes it a bit harder to be charged in response. But still, in most cases, you're gonna get charged, but that's fine. I'm just a bit sad they lost one of their rules I really did enjoy, which was the ability to, in the combat phase when being selected to fight, being able to instead retreat. That was one of my favorite abilities they had. Sadly, they have lost that one. I can see why. It was rather obnoxious. It made sequencing for your enemy a bit awkward, because they always had to pick this fight first, because otherwise the Arkanauts would just run away, making their charge completely wasted.
Well, yeah, it's almost like the skink ability, isn't it?
Yeah, which gave rise to some funny terminology like the Thunderous Slingshot was a common maneuver where you charged an enemy with Thunderous just to select them immediately and retreat onto an objective, using the enemy unit as a springboard to gain extra movement range. That's sadly history now.
Yeah, you can't be done anymore with them. Cool. So, are these sort of things that you would put? What are these guys? What's their job role? What's their point of being in your army?
Their job is providing the damage for your army. Whereas the Arkanaut Company is a good all-round package. They have a bit of damage in melee. They have a bit better damage in range. They have solid holding power. These guys, you want to protect them, even though they also have 4 armor and 2 wounds each. They come in increments of 5. You want to protect them, and you want them to deal the damage that your army needs. They are your big shooty boys, and when you bring them in a unit size of at least 10, or have another way of giving them ether gold, they become rather deadly. They can threaten big character models like Arkan the Black, Neferata, Gordrak very easily.
And they're quite, for someone who hasn't like fought against them before, for me, if I didn't really know much about them, I'd think, I'd fall into the trick of thinking they're quite small models.
They look rather unassuming.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing to be worried too much about. That guy's got a cute little metallic bird robot on his shoulder. He looks friendly.
On first glance, their stat line doesn't look all that impressive either. But then think of this. Even a 10-man unit of them comes with 22 shots, being 2 shots per rifle plus an extra 2 on the sergeant. Now, imagine spending a command point to allow them to reroll once to hit, and spending their ether gold to reroll all 2 wound rolls. All these shots with a -1 rend have a serious capability of eliminating valuable characters in 1 turn of shooting by just an investment of 240 points in 1 shooting phase. That's rather devastating. Though you have to choose where to spend your ether gold, because that's a once per game thing per unit that has a share of it.
Yeah, it's that decision making, isn't it?
Yes, that's a great thing. Also, you can only spend 1 per phase, which makes them a bit more interesting, in my opinion. Otherwise, everyone would probably just spend all the ether gold in the first shooting phase of the game and decimate everything. But no, you can only spend 1 per phase. So, on which unit are you going to do that? On which target?
So it becomes even more tactical, doesn't it? Really, at that point. And like you say, that's the case. The more games you play, the more you're going to be able to tell when you need it and not try and. Because I imagine this, I don't know, like when you've been learning to play the army like me, I'd certainly be points where I'd go, right, I'm going to need to use that gold now. I use it and go, crap, I wish I used it on another unit in this phase instead. Like, it just comes with experience.
It's kind of like a precision strike thing. Being able to spend 1 per turn. Maybe you have 2 units of 10 shooting at different targets. Which target has priority? Do you really need to spend it right now? You could save it up for later. Maybe you need it for them to pass Battle Shock. Maybe you want to keep them alive and reroll their saves instead. That's all things you have to consider before going all out in their shooting phase.
Yeah, exactly. But no, they are, and they're quite. They are a bit more beefier than your standard Arkanauts company. They've got a load more armor and stuff, so they are quite nice on that aesthetically as well. So then moving on, so another sort of 5-man unit we have are the Warhammer Underworlds lot, but we won't really look at those because, correct me if I'm wrong, are they any good?
Sadly, no.
Okay,
they're effectively an ether chemist with a reversed ability and a unit of Arkanauts.
And probably over point costed as well.
Yeah, as these warbands tend to be.
Which is a shame because they are great models. But you know, the thing to think about them, if I don't know, you're watching, you think, oh, I've got a set of those. I was going to play Underworlds and then maybe go into this army in Age of Sigmar, but I've just been told not very good. Just substitute them and use them as replacement models for your ARKANAUT company, etc. No one's going to mind. Use them as the captain or whatever the leader champion's called. You know.
Yeah, effectively what you get when you buy Thunderix Profiteers is a chemist and 5 Arkanauts, including 1 volley cannon and 1 skyhook. Or was it 1 skypike? I think it's 1 skypike. I'm not sure if they have a skyhook. I would have to look that up.
That's fine. So moving on to something that's more you might see more often. Endrinriggers.
Endrinriggers are also one of the units that have changed. They are the units that have changed fairly little, but have been very much impacted by a change to another unit in your roster, which is the Chemist. The Endrinriggers are essentially a flying support unit that can attach itself to sky vessels whenever they fly around the place. In their hero phase, they can repair sky vessels. For each model in the unit, you roll a d6. On the 4-up, you can still restore a wound. Again, making you consider, do I want more of them? But if I bring more than 6 of them, they can no longer attach with the ship, so I would have to run to keep up. That's an interesting thing. Also, they also have a 4-up save, 2 wounds. That's like the common characteristic in this book. All of the infantry has a 4-up save, making it rather easy to remember their stat line.
Yep.
They're quick. They fly. Important is their 12-inch range on their standard ranged attack, which is the rapid-fire rivet gun, which is significant because it allows them to fire as well after following a ship deep striking. That's an advantage they have over their counterpart, the SKYWARDENS, which are built from the same kit, whose pistols have a range of 9.
Yeah, these are the shooty ones, aren't they?
In a way, both are, but it's difficult. I'm still struggling with these two. Both of them are built from the same kit. They both have the same stat profile. They have slightly different default weaponry and have slightly different rules. But it's difficult to say which ones are like. The SKYWARDENS are an obvious choice in one of the Skyport, whereas the Endrinriggers tend to be preferred in most of the others. That usually comes down to them simply having a more reliable weapon, with 1 attack each, hitting on 3s, wounding on 2s, with -2 rend and d3 damage each. That's a very good profile, but remember, you get only 3 for 100 points. With the Missile Master, you get 1 additional attack, so you have, for 100 points, 4 attacks. One of them missing is painful, but their profile is very, very good.
Yeah.
And why I mentioned the Chemist beforehand was, previously the Chemist's ability was to add a 1 to the attacks characteristic of a selected weapon type within a unit. So essentially being able to double their attacks was a huge deal in the previous Kharadron Overlord book. That is no longer possible, henceforth giving the SKYWARDENS a chance to compete with them.
And with that, let's have a look at the SKYWARDENS now.
So,
as they are like we said a few times, they are the direct comparison. Obviously, it's the same with any twin kit.
Yeah, both of them, I probably should have mentioned that before. Both of them have different weapon options. They can 1 and 3 can take the Ethermatic volley gun, which is a 24-inch range weapon with 6 shots, 4s and 4s, -1/1. And 1 and 3 additionally can take a grapnel launcher, a skyhook, or a drill cannon, which are their other weapon choices.
Sorry, these are the Endrinriggers, so these are SKYWARDENS.
This is identical for both of them.
Okay.
With the grapple launcher preventing enemies from retreating, and the skyhook providing a bonus to charge. If you want to build either of them as shooting squads, as heavy shooting squads, you might want to consider the Ethermatic volley gun combined with the drill launcher, which hits on 4s, wounds on 3s, has a -3 rend but d3 damage. Significant is that this weapon does its damage as mortal wounds on a hit roll of a 6. So this is, in my opinion, the best shooting option. What makes these Skywardens, however, different is their basic weaponry. They, again, have, with their melee weapon, the Skypike, has the same profile as the Athletic Saw, but one worse in each category. So instead of hitting on 3s, they hit on 4s. Instead of wounding on 2s, they wound on 3s. And instead of having 2 rend, they have 1 rend. They do, however, have 2 attacks each with still D3 damage, making them slightly pull ahead on targets with 5 or worse armor. So it's debatable which unit is better, preferable. It's hard. These units are so similar. It's difficult to choose.
It's interesting just how similar they are. Like if I was to compare like a dual kit I've had a lot of dealings with, which like horrors and flares, they are vastly very different. They look very same, but on the table they play very differently.
The Skywardens have a very obvious, very different job in your army, but they are specifically tailored to counter one of your weaknesses, which you are not very likely to encounter, though. To state their usefulness, I have to mention that sky vessels can teleport and shoot, or retreat and shoot, but that rule is annulled by being engaged by enemy flying units. The Skywardens themselves do better against flying units, as in they are your charge blockers for flying units. They do mortal wounds when flying units try to charge them due to their Sky Mines rule. So they would be counters to Nighthounds, for example.
Yeah, so if I was just to look at that rule, so it's the Sky Mine. So if an enemy unit that can fly into the charge move within 1 inch of any friendly units with this ability, you can roll 1 dice for each model in that unit for each 6. They use a small window. I completely understand why you say Nighthawk now, because they all fly pretty much, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's rather nice. But it's very matchup dependent. Not every army is going to have flying units in
and when they do, it might
numbers.
just be exactly what you're about to say there. Because if they do, it might just be a unit of 3.
Or even just a unit of 1. A Terrorgeist is not going to tremble in fear, but when he's confronted with a single mortal wound, which he only might potentially take.
Yeah, well, exactly. Like even just with the death save from that Terrorgeist with the guy on top of it, it'll be a case of you're just as likely to be able to roll to do that mortal wound against that person as that Terrorgeist is going to be to save that mortal wound.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Also, instead of repairing sky vessels, they have a rule that allows them to deal potentially D3 mortal wounds when retreating from combat on a 4+.
That's nice.
Which sounds nice, but in the recent developers' commentary, it has been clarified that when these units follow a sky vessel out of combat by hitching right on it, it does not count as a retreat.
Oh, okay.
Meaning, when you teleport them out, you cannot do these mortal wounds. Hence, you cannot shoot afterwards because it's not a... well, you could still shoot afterwards, but since you have to deploy outside of 9, the default weapon is not going to work either. So you're getting the benefits of none.
Yeah, the only thing to say to that, though, there are quite a few things out there that can stop the enemy from retreating. Sinesh have got a way, I've already seen, like, these guys have got a way to do it with their grapple launcher. Zeech has got a way. There's lots of ways to stop the enemy from retreating from your unit. So if you want to bog them down, like the Unmade, that's another one. At least with these guys, they're not going to be bogged down by that. They have got a way around it if they've got that ship to cling on to.
Yeah, well, mentioning they themselves do have a way of making enemy units unable to retreat when they are built with at least 1 grapple launcher. But these are very obviously, coming in sizes of 3 for 100 points, not a target unit. So it's difficult for me to justify the weapon choice of a grapple launcher. Well, yes, it sounds nice on paper that the enemy cannot retreat. It's very easy to destroy a unit that comes with 6 wounds.
I was just about to say, so to talk about these guys, we've mentioned a lot of things they can do. However, how survivable are your Endrinriggers and your Skywardens? Because I'm looking at it, 2 wounds apiece, 4 up save. How much are these guys costing for free?
100 points for 3.
100 points. Don't get me wrong, I like in the shooting side, combat side, these guys are going to die.
when these guys do not destroy what they hit, they will die themselves.
Yeah, so they have to be able to shoot what they're going to charge into and then kill it in combat. Otherwise,
Yes.
yeah,
Otherwise, they're going to suffer.
Yeah.
However, there is one Skypod which emphasizes that aspect of the Skywardens, which is Barrack Zorn, which is probably considered the weakest Skypod by some, but I've still considered choosing it, which is a good sign in my opinion. It allows the Skywardens to adopt the Endrinrigger's weapon profile on a charge, but still keeping the one extra attack per model. So
Okay.
all of a sudden you have these units again. They have 2 attacks per model plus 1 for their Custodian. So that's 7 attacks for 3 models with 3 up, 2 up, -1 D3 each. And all of a sudden that hurts quite a lot more. And now consider bringing them in units of up to 12, spending their Ether Gold on rerolling hit rolls. It's a very powerful Alpha Strike, which with very much guaranteed to get every unit into combat, because they also have a range of 2 with their pikes, compared to a range of 1 from the Endrinriggers. So they are very much capable of being combat effective in larger units. That is, however, a lot of points concentrated onto one spot.
It is. And with the Skywardens and the Endrinriggers, what unit sizes are we thinking?
I think the most common unit sizes will be 3, 6, and 12.
Oh, right, it's 12.
Yeah, 3 because it's the smallest one, it's easy to bring, it's easy to attach to a ship.
Yep.
6 because it's the only second size that can fit with a sky vessel. Each sky vessel can have 7 models hitch a ride at once. So 6 is perfect to bring 6 with them, plus a hero that's capable of doing so, which is the new character from the Ether War box. And 12 because when you bring so many that they can no longer teleport with a ship, you might as well bring enough to gain an Ether Gold for it. That's the basic thinking, just.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think I can see a lot of people running these in 3s.
Yes.
Just because they use them as, their tactical use rather than
Oh yeah.
a Death Star or something.
Also, you can play them in a rather obnoxious way. I have no idea how effective it is, but it's something I want to try at some point. Which is bringing the new character as my general, which makes these 2 guys both battle line, both Endrinriggers and Skywardens, and then bringing as many minimum-sized units of them as I possibly can. All equipped with their Ethermatic volley gun and their drill launcher. With a 24-inch range, I can have them float all across the board and shoot from everywhere. And having to engage all these tiny units floating about their place with their 12 movement is really obnoxious.
Yeah, literally these bouncing annoying balloon things. But no, yeah, so, well, that is them. And to be honest, that is, I was going to call them the ground forces, really, but it's not. That's the main. They're the main sort of units of the army before we go into the ships and the leaders. So, what would you rather look at first, the ships or the heroes?
Let's go with the ships, because I think those are very much essential for the entire army, even more so than the heroes are.
So we'll start with the baby one, the Gunhauler.
Yes, in my opinion, a fantastic ship that is made even better by one of their possible engine works. So, to clarify, great engine works are an equivalent to mount trades in other factions, but they apply to sky vessels, even though they are not heroes or characters. So, in effect, your sky vessels can bring artifacts.
And it's the one you're going to say for this that lets them transport a unit of 5 models, is that right?
Yes, natively the Gunhauler is too small to be a transporter, but with one of those engine works, I think it's called the collapsible compartments, they can transport a unit of 5, which is perfect for the minimum-sized units of Thunderers. It therefore turns them into it acts as a mobile weapon platform that also manages to protect them at the same time, and adds its own shooting to that unit. On its own, it's still very solid. It has 10 wounds for 150 points. While it's not the most ideal ratio, it's certainly good. So you might as well use this ship to tank a charge. Losing it is not the greatest deal, and it's sturdy. It can, like all sky vessels, it can fly high, therefore teleport around the field, and tap unattended objectives, or try to shoot at heroes from different angles in case their line of sight is blocked by something. Their weapons are not that impressive. They all come with the 2 ether carbine shots, which have a 12-inch range, 3s and 4s, -1 damage. And they have a weapon choice between the Sky Cannon and the Drill Launcher, both of which are very excellent weapon choices in my opinion. I cannot quite decide which one I like more. Well,
So what are the choices?
the Sky Cannon and the Drill Cannon.
Drill cannon looks cooler. I'm just going to say it.
It does. It even has the added benefit.
-3 rend against Petrified Elite is good.
What speaks very much for the Drill Cannon is that it inflicts its damage as a maxed out 3 mortal wounds on a roll on a 5 or 6.
Oh, really?
Yes. That makes it perfect for sniping characters, for example.
And is that to wound or is that to...
To hit.
Okay.
So hit roll of 5 or 6 is flat 3 mortal wounds.
So not even a 6. That's nice. Okay.
And all that at a 36-inch range. So try to hide from that.
Yeah, I mean, at least with the Sky Cannon, you have 2 different profiles you can go for, if you'd like. But I think the Drill Cannon, I do like that 36-inch range because this thing, I wouldn't really want to get in too close to the enemy. In my personal opinion, I like it sort of on the outskirts, sort of harassing the enemy, a bit like a light cavalry unit, just being a pain in the enemy's backside. Whenever the enemy tries to get near it, it just buggers off.
Yeah. But what I've learned from playing Kharadron Overlords for the first few times is that you charge more than you would expect.
Yeah?
Yes, very much so. This ship, imagine it deep striking outside of 9 of an enemy, bringing with it its crew of 5 Thunderers and maybe 3 Endrinriggers. You've landed behind the enemy backline and you start to opening up with shooting, and you manage to kill most of the important support characters by shooting them down. But one of them, or 2 of them, or maybe some range units are still standing. So you charge the ship in. And when you deep strike at that close range, you might as well use the shrapnel cannon shooting profile from the Sky Cannon.
Yeah, so for deep striking this thing, go for the cannon.
Yes.
The Sky Cannon.
Though the Sky Cannon is very random. It has either d6 attacks or d6 damage, depending on which profile you choose, making it the less reliable of the 2 weapons, but the one with potentially far more damage. Another significant thing to mention is that, like all other sky vessels, at the beginning of the combat phase, the gunhauler can drop bombs on the enemy and do d3 mortal wounds on a 4+. In addition to that, you might want one with your other sky vessels because it gives other sky vessels nearby a 6-up ignore wound save. So it's very much a support ship.
Yeah. Which is so is there use to the small ship? Because before I believe the small ship was not really worth taking.
It was fairly useless before that, but now I actually really like it because it's cheap with 150 points.
Is that it? Is there a way to make this battle line, or
there is a way, and it is the skyport I'm actually currently building towards to. It's the Market City that allows me to bring guns to gunhaulers as battle line, and the idea is of having 2 or 3 of them with drill cannons shooting from maximum range at the enemy, just picking off the important models.
Because what you're going to think, a 36-inch range is absolutely massive, especially with a movement of 12 inches. This is a 48-inch threat range, which is practically almost wherever you want it on the board.
Well, technically, they have an infinite threat range due to their ability to teleport in each movement phase.
Oh, it's in the moving phase, isn't it? So you can see, yeah.
Yes. And it doesn't count as running, it doesn't count as retreating. And even if it does so, it has a rule disengage. This model and any model in its garrison can retreat and still shoot in the same turn, as long as there are no enemy units that can fly within 3 of this model at the start of its retreat move. So it has perfect mobility, so to say. There's really nothing stopping this model from going where it pleases.
And to be honest, if I was going against this and I saw the small, and don't get me wrong, like this, it's not going to wipe out entire units and stuff, this small one, that easily. But if I was to see this as an opponent at first time fighting the Kharadron Overlords, I would not really be worrying about this little ship. I'd think it's. I feel like the opponent brought it because they bought the start collecting box. I wouldn't worry about it. Something else I'd like about this is it's to hit into wing characteristics are very good. Like the Sky Cannon shell, a 3 and a 2.
And here's a little something you can do. You can ally in a Stormcast model, which is the Ordinator, which adds +1 to all hit rolls of friendly Order war machines, which these sky vessels are. So you can use your Sky Cannon shrapnel shots, have D6 shots hitting on 2s, wounding on 3s. That's not very friendly. It's fun. I'm not sure if it's competitive though, allying in that model. You really have, it's difficult to spend your points right in this army.
Yeah, but it'll make your opponent annoyed when they hear you say that characteristic. it's like for example, like if I say that the Mortek Crawlers that hit on 2s, wound and 3s is incredibly effective.
Yeah, that doesn't sound very fun. Another thing,
side table you're on.
Another detail to mention is this sky vessel is, due to its nature of being a sky vessel, has a share of ether gold natively, meaning that you can, if you really want to shoot something off the board, maybe roll some good D6 shots and then spend your ether gold on either rerolling hits or wounds.
Yeah, that's true.
Or on rerolling its 4-up saves. So this thing is very durable. 10 wounds with 4-up rerollable save is nothing to laugh at. And with its perfect mobility, you might as well teleport it in between one of your squishy units and your enemy to act as a shock blocker, to catch their charge, and then punish them with maybe some mortal wounds from the bombs at the beginning of the combat phase.
Yeah. That's not a bad idea. Well, that is the baby ship, and I'm pleasant to hear that it sounds like worth a take, because what you got to think is like you are going to get it in start collecting box, and sometimes, unfortunately, what you get in those start collecting boxes, what seemed like a fantastic way to start the army, really, really are not. So it's good to see that it has got used to it.
Speaking of the start collecting box,
yep.
Previously it was the worst start collecting box in the entire model range, due to it not containing any battle line. Now, with the new character and all the new skyports, it potentially contains all battle line. So one of the skyports brings the Thunderers as battle line, another one makes the ships a battle line, and then again the new character makes the SKYWARDENS kits battle line. So there you go.
Well, yeah. That's great. Which is, yeah, it's fantastic when things go from, like I was just saying with the GUNHAULER, but when a whole start collecting box goes from 0 to hero, it's goodness.
Very much. Oh yes.
So the basically these ships are, if you don't play the army, it's basically I grade them as the small, the medium, and the big one, or the small, the medium, and the big fucker. So going with the medium one, the ARKANAUT frigate. So this is one I imagine you'll. I don't know actually. I don't know the army, so I was gonna say I imagine you would see this quite a bit because it's the medium one, but I might be wrong. What are your thoughts?
Yes, this will be the one you will probably see the most, and that is not because it is good by itself. I actually find its weapon profiles fairly disappointing because if you look closely, it's almost the same as that of the small one.
And how many points is this thing?
This thing is 250 points, so 100 points more than the small one.
So as good as the transporter, is that what we're thinking?
Pretty much. It can hold up to 15 models,
Yep.
but only 11 without being encumbered by them. Meaning you can only have 11 models in it while still being able to use its fly high rule to teleport around the board and retreat and shoot.
Got you.
So the only significant difference in its weapon profile is the ether shot carbines went up by 2 shots and actually went up to 2 damage per shot. That is a significant increase. However, the main weapon is exactly the same as that of the small ship, except it exchanged the excellent, in my opinion, drill cannon for a skyhook, which has a similar profile, but none of the mortal wounds.
Unfortunately.
It does, however, increase the charge distance of the ship, which is nice in a pinch, but not what I would take. Other than that, it has 14 wounds, so it's slightly more durable. It has the same save. It has a 12-inch move. So the same as the small ship, but on a degrading profile. It bombs on a full profile are easier to trigger on a 3-up instead of a 4-up. Other than that, it's pretty much the same. But the reason you're going to see this a lot is because it can fit a unit of 10 Thunderers plus a hero. And that is all it needs to do. It needs to be a teleport weapon platform for your Thunderers and their hero support. That's what most lists going to be based around, in my opinion.
Which is, so it's not, from what I'm hearing, it's not your, your damage dealer from shooting and all that sort of thing. It's not going to be the thing you look at to like I say, inflict that damage on the enemy, but it is more of a logistical role.
Yes, its shooting should not be underestimated, though it will not make up its 250 point cost in shooting attacks.
Yep.
That comes down to everything else it provides. Because Thunderers inside the ship are at -1 to hit, they have a +1 to their armor save, and all their ranges can be measured from any point of the base from the ship. Meaning that if one is in range, they all are in range.
Yeah. And what are we thinking with the skyhook and the cannon?
In my opinion, there's no contest. The Sky Cannon is better. The Skyhook, well, does have the same profile as the Sky Cannon cannon shell shot at a lower range and only adds +2 to the ship's charge. I would rather have the option to choose between the shell and the shrapnel shot.
How often do you want to get this in combat?
Depends on your list building. If you fill this thing up with ARKANAUTs, then go ahead, charge that thing in, because you can also melee out of that thing.
So it depends. Okay, so there's not one way to build this thing, then, is there? Like, there's not one way to. Okay, probably the best way to say it. There's not one way to use this thing.
Oh no, especially with one of the battalions, this becomes an excellent troop delivery system. One of the battalions consisting of 2+ frigates and 1 ARKANAUT company per frigate in the battalion allows them to charge D3, 3d6 dice when they leave their frigate and try to charge. So you can effectively teleport the thing back and forth, delivering more infantry to the front line.
Yeah, which is really good.
I'm not sure if it's the most effective way of using it, but it's good, and it's a perfect way to snatch up objectives.
Is it the most effective? I know obviously it can't transport as many as the Ironclad, but would you say for its job role, is it the most effective transporter?
Yes, it is most cost effective, and it's going to be the one most people will use.
Cool. And especially you can make in battle line.
Oh yes.
With
Dark Ziflin.
Yep. And like I say, like the heavy skyhook, might not be the best treatment, but if you do want to get us into combat with the add-on 2 to charge, you're guaranteed those 3-inch charges, aren't you? Or 4-inch charge of that.
Well, with Kharadron Overlords, you should think in dimensions of 9 because that's
of
where
the
you
deep
teleport.
striking, yeah.
Exactly. So a 7-inch charge is not that bad. And again, keep in mind, this thing has Ether Gold due to being a sky vessel.
So it can reroll that charge.
It can reroll hits, wounds, charges, saves. And it could pass Battle Shock, but that's rather irrelevant with a single model unit.
There's no points there. Okay, so that's the frigate. And then moving on to the Ironclad. So what's been quite good so far, we sort of found a way why you would use every single unit in this army so far. Which is, if I'm honest, quite unusual in a good way. Most things, like we said at the start though, this army doesn't really have one thing where you just spam, which is nice. It adds more freedom to when you're building your lists.
Yeah, almost all of the units are in some way interdependent on the other. None are doing great without support from any other model. And that's one of the things I like. If there's just one big blob of the best unit, that isn't very fun in my opinion.
No, exactly. It's not. Well, I do it, so I can't. I've got something like 27 flares, so I can't really. But that was before the new FEC book and everything back in the days. But that's just how the game feels. There's just one good unit in an army, and then there's a couple of things in that army that buff that good unit, and then most competitive lists are filled with up to 5 War Scrolls max. And that's being generous. It's probably more like 4.
Yeah, it doesn't look very interesting. Granted, though, some of the more expensive armies cannot field more than that, but for different reasons.
Exactly. So anyway, the Ironclad, so the big motherfucker. Right, so talk us through why you would take this. Why would you spend £70 on this Ironclad? I make it sound like it's a really big question you're going to have to justify, but I mean, what is the reason? Why would you take him? Because it's an awesome centerpiece, isn't it? I think we can agree.
Oh, it's beautiful. But more significantly, even than the monetary investment, I would say, is that thing comes in one Gotrek worth of points. That is, well, not quite, 510 points. That's over a quarter of your army. So that thing is very expensive to field.
Yeah.
Probably the best reason is that this unit's weapon profiles come, in case of the Sky Cannons, with all the D6 rolls replaced with flat 6s. So its damage is very reliable. So instead of having D6 shots, it has 6 shots with 3s and 3s, -1, 2 damage. It has 1 shot with flat 6 damage for the other weapon profile. It comes also with a Skyhook with a flat 6 damage instead of a D6. Yeah, that's nice. But it adds the Great Volley Cannon to its weapon options, which is a great random 4d6 amount of shots, which could be, well, either 4 or significantly more. But it's a great weapon in average. Also, it comes with torpedoes, which have 4 shots, 4 3s, -1, D3 damage. So overall, this ship will hurt the most by far in the shooting phase.
Yeah.
Whatever this ship aims at is going to take a huge beating. Especially when you consider, once again, it has Ether Gold. If you really want to see something gone, aim this ship at that thing.
Yeah, it's... Yeah. I'm just saying yes, because I agree with those points. And when I'm saying that, I'm looking at the ship and thinking this thing is cool. Something to mention as well, and particularly if you're new to Age of Sigmar, and you're sort of the first time you've heard that a unit has torpedoes. It's not a really a regular thing, would you say, for units to be armed with torpedoes in the game?
No, this is the only unit so far that has torpedoes in Age of Sigmar, and it's the finest and most advanced invention, pretty much, of the Kharadron Overlords. Their finest Eater technicians, pretty much, or Endrin Masters, whatever you want to call them, have come up with this beauty.
Yeah, they sort of saw that and it's like, you know what, we don't really need to build anything bigger. It is, in terms of models, it is cool. Like, I was having a look at the pictures and stuff. I'll get it up now. And there's one I've just noticed, and I haven't really. I maybe seen one of these, like maybe 4 against 1, but I can't remember, a long time ago. And I certainly won't remember that there is a guy on the side of the ship, like an astronaut with an arm holding him to the ship so it doesn't fall off. And he's painting the ship with a paintbrush. And
Yes,
he's got a gun in his other hand.
So you could technically leave one spot unpainted and just say it's immersive.
Exactly. You know, if you're like 30 seconds to get to that tournament and you haven't leave that little spot, the bit you don't paint, and it's just sort of like, you know, when you're doing, I don't know, you're off to war but doing DIY at 5. You know, you've got. I mean, that is, and the best thing is that paint. I don't know how well you can see this on the screen for the people who'll be watching, but that paintbrush has got paint dripping off it. You know, on the eyes. It's those little things. It's the same reason with Gloomspite Gits. I love that rock got Trogoth that has that bird's nest on its head, with the little worm on the rock.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that probably. All these ships come with crew models to put on the ship inside their kit. So that's a nice touch.
The bigger the ship, the more crew you get.
Yes.
And something that's nice about with the frigate has it to an extent, but the Ironclad, it has a proper deck, doesn't it, to the ship? It is a proper...
Oh yeah, it's big. It's really big. What I tend to do with my units that I embark on vessels, you obviously place them off the table as per the rule, but I like to put 1 or 2 of the models on the ship to represent them being in there. And with this big ship, you can place some.
You've got the space. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I mean, how many models can you fit in this? You know, in gameplay reasons.
25.
Yeah, you're not gonna. You're not gonna fit 20 Thunderers on it.
Yeah, and even if you wanted to be still able to fly and retreat and shoot, you got to stick it with 16.
Yeah, exactly. So if you already said this and I've just can't remember, but did you sort of go through the weapon loadouts? What we thinking?
The weapon loadout in the shooting phase has when you equip the Great Volley Gun, has a total damage potential of 52 wounds per shooting phase. That's huge.
It's freeze and freeze as well, isn't it? I was going to say if there's a 4 chucked in there, I was going to say it's not very reliable, but it's 46 those shots is.
Yeah, the 46 is the biggest random factor you're going to encounter with this ship.
So is that on average 14? If that's right.
That would be 4 times 3 on average. That is,
so 12, is it?
12, yes.
Okay. I just didn't know if it was... an average on 2 dice is 7, isn't it?
Well, wouldn't that be 6? So 3 being the perfect average of a dice. So 6.
Why would 4 not be the perfect average?
Oh, right. 1, 2, 3, 4... Whatever. Yeah, it's somewhere between...
Anyway, you're going to roll your 4d6 and you're probably going to get 4 shots. That's what happened if I was to roll it.
Maths.
Yeah, battle shock phase. Yeah. Right. So sorry, I was interrupting. You were saying about it.
Another significant detail is that the ether shot carbines go up again another 4 shots, doubling the amount of shots. And remember, this weapon is 2 damage each. So the damage increase from the frigate to the Ironclad is phenomenal. However, it doesn't quite justify the points cost. Now, when you consider that you want 15 Thunderers plus a hero inside of this, that's most of your army concentrated onto 1 base.
What is... Let's say the enemy surrounds this with a horde, kills it, and then obviously something we haven't really talked about is the bailing out. So we talk about garrison models in these things, but what happens when the ship goes crashing down? You've got... And let's say you've got 20 ARKANAUT company in here.
So when the ship goes down, you have to deploy all units inside the ship, wholly within 3 of it, before removing the model. But beforehand, you roll a dice for each model inside of it. On a 1, that model is slain. If you cannot set up these models anywhere wholly within 3 of this ship, and anywhere outside of 3 from enemies, the models count as slain.
So, like, obviously if a horde unit surrounds it, it's going to be a bit problematic, isn't it? In that sense. But would you say if, like, I don't know, it's been surrounded by 40 plague monks or something, and the ship's gone down, it's going to be hard for you to set up all your models. Some may die because you can't set them up. However, your counter to that, would you say that if you've allowed this thing to be surrounded by 40 plague monks and everything else, you've gone wrong somewhere?
Probably, but then again, if it happens to survive those plague monks for one turn, it will probably just fly high and appear somewhere else and be safe again. The significant part about the ship is also 18 wounds with a 3-up save. And at this point, I'd like to mention something rather significant regarding the wording of the reroll save rolls triumph. Whereas most triumphs are used when a unit is shooting, or rather starting to perform its action, this is exactly the same thing here, meaning the triumph is used when you are starting to make save rolls, meaning you can wait and see what your opponent's to hit and to wound rolls are before deciding to spend this triumph on rerolling a 3-up save. That's really significant. So this ship is extremely survivable.
How does that work again? How can you wait? Does it just say in a combat phase you can use it too?
It says when you're... I have the German version right here, so I translated it the way it's meant to be.
Best you can.
So it's yeah. So it says here once per battle when a friendly unit is due to make their save rolls, it is used. In this case, since you're Kharadron Overlords, you ignore the once per game phase and instead pay for it with Ether Gold. But it says when a unit is due to make their save rolls, meaning you wait. You don't have to say, when your opponent say, okay, I take these 40 plague monks and just take your ship, you don't have to immediately scream that you're going to use that triumph to reroll saves. You can wait.
They might fail with their hits, and there was never to be any saves to be made.
Yeah, or maybe you're confident that you're going to survive the amount of wounds coming through after the opponent made their rolls.
Exactly. And with this ship, I imagine it used to have a 4-up save.
Yeah, it used to have a 4-up save, now it has a 3-up save.
Huge difference.
Oh yeah, the best save in the book. Everything else 4-up, 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 4-up.
Yeah, but if the other stuff was a 3-up, you'd almost be a little bit annoyed with the cost of this thing then, because we've already said it's very expensive in terms of points. Are we thinking it's worth it? Would you only in certain lists? Is that what you're going to say?
Only in certain lists, because what you want to think about when you play these ships is that you want to use their transport capacity up to the point where they're not encumbered. Meaning you have 510 points ship, plus in this case 15 Thunderers. That's 240, 360 points on top of that inside the ship, plus whatever hero you decide to embark with that ship. So you're almost going to have half of your army in that ship invested. That doesn't leave much on the table. That's a huge investment, and you have to really think hard if you can afford to concentrate that many points into one base. Because that, I'd like to talk about a huge vulnerability the Kharadron Overlords have, is since all ranges to and from garrison models are measured to or from the base of the garrison itself, means that you are extremely vulnerable, especially with this ship, against effects that count up models within their range. Because if one part of this huge Ironclad's base is in range of that ability, all models inside are as well. And there are some weapons, like that of the Fear Gyrocopter, the steam gun, and I believe there are some Stormcast weapons that count up the amount of models within their weapon range and have that many attacks. That's huge. That's destroying you when you approach the enemy with a ship that's loaded to the brim with your infantry. Same with endless spells that do similar things. For example, the Mork's Mighty Mushroom counts all models with an 8 of it, and for each 5 rolled, does a mortal wound. So that's one of the few drawbacks you have with having your models garrisoned. Obviously, their drawback increases and becomes more severe with the more transport capacity a single sky vessel has.
Yeah. That's cool. It's also, you put this thing on the table, the enemy's going to try and kill it straight away, which might mean that your other stuff's going to be more safer.
Well, on the other hand, that can be a giant bait. Now, consider this. You have your ironclad, you start round 1. You teleport your ironclad to wherever you're going to hurt your enemy most. In it, you have an admiral. In it, you have 15 thunderers. With it, you transport 6 Endrinriggers and 1 Endrin Master with dirigible suit. Now, if anything within range survives your devastating shooting phase, consisting of, well, those potential 52 wounds of shooting from the ironclad itself, plus the, what would that be, 32 shots of thunderers, and is going to charge your ship, you might as well spend your ether gold rerolling saves, and beginning the next hero phase, you will heal many of those wounds back, because this ship itself heals 1 each hero phase. The Endrin Master in dirigible suit heals a flat 3, and each Endrinrigger has a 50-50 chance of restoring another wound to the ship. So these ships can become huge wound sponges. It can be a giant trap, but it can also backfire on you terribly.
Exactly. And that's pretty. And like we say with this thing, if you want to damage it as well, firstly you got to take random more wounds, really. So yeah, that's cool. And well, with that is the last ship. And what else was I going to say? So we're going to move on to the heroes now. Just something quickly to mention: if you did hear a weird video quickly playing in the background, that will be of the Zeech video that has just finished exporting. So I'm going to try and upload that to YouTube after I've done this video, as it's been a little bit of a pain in the arse. Right, okay, so with that little sign out of the way, let us move on to the heroes. So, what hero are we starting with first? The Admiral, the Engine Master, the Ether Chemist, or the Navigator? What are we thinking?
I was actually thinking about Brock Grangnisson, the only named hero in the book.
Yeah, we can start with him.
Just to get him out of the way. Because I'm actually kind of sad about that one.
Yeah, is it your typical name character?
He is actually fairly decent.
How expensive is he?
240 points.
How much is that frigate?
That frigate is 250.
Okay.
So he comes in at the price of a frigate pretty much. But I'd sadly say, with the change to him, it was actually a fairly small change. But what they did change is that he is now locked with the ARKANAUT keyword, meaning that he is only really viable when you play that specific skyport.
Right.
Previously, he used to take on whatever keyword of the skyport you were playing. Now, well, it makes sense lore-wise. He is the Lord Magnate of ARKANAUT. Now he is locked with ARKANAUT. You can still bring him with other skyports, but he is not going to benefit from their abilities. So that's the first thing to mention. Then his shooting attacks, or rather his entire profile, is really decent, with 12-inch move, 3 up save, 8 bravery, and 8 wounds. However, it is exactly the same to his new counterpart, the Endrin Master with the dirigible suit, which we're probably covering out right after that.
Yeah, exactly. So, what do we think about it? Are we going to take him? Maybe in ARKANAUT. Is that the only time you would take him?
In ARKANAUT, or when you're playing with a custom code. That would be my answer to that. Because when you're playing a custom code, you're not reliant on a Barak keyword, meaning he benefits from your custom code.
Cool.
So that's an advantage.
So we're not saying that you'll never see him, he's unplayable.
No, his stat line is even fairly decent. He is fairly good in ranged, fairly good in melee, and actually kind of durable. However, what hinders him is the inability of all named characters to take artifacts or command traits. Sad.
Yep. Not exactly the same for this guy, but a lot of those named characters have a direct counterpart that can take those artifacts, etc. Or there's something for a similar point cost that's not a named character that can take the command trait and artifact.
Yeah. Well, this one... Well, he's good. He's better than his counterpart for 20 points more expensive. However, his counterpart, the Endrin Master of Dirigibles, overtakes him as soon as you hand him an artifact.
Yeah, I mean, so just a couple of things to note about the model itself. He has got guns in his moustache.
That is, of course, a great advantage, as well as exhaust pipe in his head.
Yep, he's got an exhaust pipe. He's got a top hat. He has also got a chainsaw. The chainsaw, which is the very much like 40k.
So his job is to provide the right amount of dapper to your list.
Yeah, well, exactly. And then the backstory about this guy. Essentially, I'm going to butcher it, and I make no apologies. His dad was a drunk that never really achieved much in his life, and this guy here wanted to bring honour back to his name. Well, not to his name, but wanted to go, well, I'm not going to end up like you. I'm going to actually go out and make a name for myself, and he did.
Pretty much.
Yeah, that's. And I remember reading that about 2 years ago whenever these guys came out, and for some reason I still remember.
It's such an ordinary story for the overblown world of Age of Sigmar, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a real homely story, which is that's not true before you say anything. But so he is he's got an exoskeleton. What's like?
To cover him real quick, I would say his melee weapon is the same one that the Endrinriggers use, but he has 4 attacks with them, so he is effectively a whole unit of Endrinriggers in that regard.
Yeah.
He has 2 shots with Grogdus's Boast, 3 up, negative 2d3 damage. That's probably his most significant weapon. The other one is the Magnard's Charter, is 6 attacks, 3 up, negative 1/1. His last weapon makes me sad because it has a 9-inch range, meaning it cannot be used after he deep strikes with a ship. 3 up for no rend, 1 damage.
Are the blasters his gun moustaches?
I believe so.
Well, it's either that or the gun moustache does D3 damage each and
Well,
has a -2 rend.
Since it is 2 shots and he has 2 moustache guns, I would say that's his moustache gun. I would then guess the Boast is the cannon right above his top hat, and the Magnard's Charter is his, well, Terminator wrist cannon almost.
Yeah, let's have I'll get his model off again. Let's have a little look at that. It always there's a bit of artwork which you see the cannon there. There's a bit of artwork I'm trying to find now. I had it up earlier, and yeah, here we are. And it literally looks like from this side. Basically, he's against Zeech. He's got his chainsword up, pointing in the air. The big cannon on his back's firing, and then the gun on his left arm is firing as well. And that gun literally looks like it belongs. If you cut off a part of that picture and you just showed the gun, it looks like it belongs part of like a Tau battle suit. You know, it is. This model is the closest to 40k in the army.
Yes, very much so. With a wrist-attached gun.
Yeah, but essentially what this guy is, he is a very wealthy and very renowned Kharadron Overlord. And what we've been talking about the army itself, you know, how they all care for profit and they all want to benefit themselves. He's sort of done that better than no one else in the faction. So that's why he's got all this fancy kit, is because he's managed to afford it.
Yeah, he's gotten wealthy, and he's managed to buy all the finest used invention of all the guilds to arm himself with.
Yep.
That's fantastic. Back to his actual gameplay uses, I think he kind of exemplifies the mentality of, when I charge something, it needs to die or I will die, with his ability to inflict D3 mortal wounds on the charge on a result of a 2+, which is fairly reliable.
Yep. He's got that free up save to help him as well in combat, hasn't he?
That is true. Also, he is a hero and therefore has an Ether Gold, which can make him for 1 turn almost untargetable. due to his high save, which you can then reroll, or you can really make sure that something dies in either the melee or the shooting phase. With him, there's really no wrong use for it.
Yeah.
I would probably, when spending it in the melee phase, I would probably spend it on the 2 hit rolls, not only because that's the worst one of the two, but also because he inflicts D3 mortal wounds on a hit roll of 6. Pretty much jumping the wound and the rend part, being exact damage, just as mortal wounds.
Yeah, which is good. However, yeah, well, I'm not going to say anything bad about that. The only thing I will say, though, is that the fact that he's wounded on 2s with -2 and D3 damage anyway, most enemies probably are going to struggle to say. But however, the amount of times I've done things when I'm wounded on 2s or something like that, and the amount of 1s you manage to roll is unbelievable.
Yeah, if that's the case, your best friend is the Ether Chemist, which allows you to reroll 1s to wound, which is a rather rare ability.
Well, there you go. Get another Ether Chemist. Have him stuck next to this guy, just make him more expensive. And make him just do what he's done, just in case he doesn't get those 6s to hit.
Yep. So, important detail, so he can also hitch a ride on sky vessels, just like Endrinriggers or Skywardens can, as if they weren't alike enough already. And his command ability allows Baragnar units holding within 24 of him to reroll charge rolls. Meaning, again, this command ability is only usable when you take him in part of a Baragnar list.
Yes, it's similar to, I can't remember his name, but the named version of Liege Kazios for the Bone Reapers, who really good command ability, but has to be in non-Petrifit Elite. So with this guy, not a bad command ability, but has to be in Baragnar.
Yeah, sadly. But overall, decent stats, nice abilities, sadly locked in a Skypod that I personally don't like all that much. And like many smaller named characters, outclassed by their ordinary equivalent as soon as you hand them an artifact.
Yeah, it's annoying. Right, okay, so let's move on to these standard heroes then that we're mentioning. Which one do we want to look at first out of Navigator, Chemist, Engine Master, or the Admiral?
I would like to cover the Endrin Master specifically with the dirigible suit, because that's his direct counterpart. We can get through him rather quickly, I think.
Yeah, sure. So the Engine Master. So tell us about him.
So the Endrin Master with the dirigible suit is the newest addition to the Kharadron Overlords. He came with the Ether War box. He is the only non-named flying hero, and is therefore the only hero able to hitch a ride on a sky vessel without being inside of it. His range profile is significantly similar to that of Brock Grungnason. One could argue it is a bit better, even. Well, it kind of keeps... I'm not sure. It's either just as good or slightly better, though at a very slightly reduced range. His main weapon has a range of 18, 6 attacks, 3 threes, -1/1 damage, which is exactly the same as the Magnat's Charter. His Ether Cannon has one shot at 12-inch range with a 3-up, 2-up, -2 D3. Fantastic profile, but only one shot. It has exactly the same profile as the Gaze of Grungni, which has, however, the sad 9-inch range.
Yeah.
So it has the sadness.
It's something we've already touched on, but just to reiterate it, when we see these ships be able to teleport 9 inches away from the enemy, that is more than 9 inches away from the enemy, not 9 inches. So they are not in range.
Yes, and while models that hitch a hike can set up hold within 6 of the sky vessel, they still have to follow the more than 9 away from enemies rule when doing so. His attack profile is again exactly the same as that of the Endrinriggers, and therefore exactly the same as that of the Bruck Grungnissen. However, he only has 3 attacks, so he is effectively a whole unit of Endrinriggers without the Mizzen Master. A significant change here is that he can heal a Sky Vessel within one of him a flat 3 wounds in each hero phase, and his command ability allows Endrinriggers to re-roll their 50-50 chance of healing a Sky Vessel in the hero phase as well, so he is a very fighty support hero choice. And probably the best combat hero in this book.
Yeah, he's an interesting addition to the army.
Yes, I especially like him with the combination of artifacts and command traits that Baragzon gets, which adds 2 to his melee attack profile, putting him up to 5 attacks, and allows him to, if he were to normally die, roll a dice. On a 2-up, all further wounds that would be allocated to him are ignored for this combat, and he heals D3. So with this, you can make him rather fighty.
Yeah, you can. And just something to say, for especially for people that may be a bit new and that sort of thing, and you're on the GW website and you're wondering why can't I find this guy, I've had to Google him to try and get his war scrap, which I managed to. This guy was available in the Ether War box set, which was a box set with Kharadron Overlords against each that came out a few weeks back. That is no longer available, or may be available from third-party retailers. You may be able to get this guy online for not too much money, but I wouldn't have a problem fighting against someone who's converted a Sky Warden or someone to look like him, because I've done the same in my Flesh Eater Courts to make an Arch Regent.
Yeah, perfectly valid.
Yeah, perfectly valid. GameStop doesn't sell the model anymore. They will sell them at some point in the future, all these separate heroes, but we don't know when, and they're probably going to sell them for about £25, depending. Cool. So that is the... anything more to say for the Engine Master?
Only that he is the more expensive and more fighty version of the Engine Master on foot, which has the same ability to heal, but, well, not quite the same. His ability to heal, for the Engine Master on foot, heals D3 wounds, the flying one flat 3. They both have the same command ability, so if you want someone to heal your ships, you don't need him, but he does it most reliably, while at the same time being the most fighty.
Nice. Well, especially that 3-up save as well, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's something most of your more combat-oriented heroes have. So the Endrin Master, the Bruck Grungnissen, and your Admiral all have that 3-up save. Also the Navigator, if I remember correctly. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think with that, naturally, we'll move on to have a look at just your standard Engine Master that you can still get online, because that's a permanent model, as much as permanent can be, which is just the Engine Master with a very big mallet.
Yes, that's the Engine Master on foot. He is perfectly viable model, even though there is the clearly stronger version. The clearly stronger version is, of course, also a fair bit more expensive than him. Let me look up how much more expensive he is exactly. The Engine Master on foot is 100 points, so the flying one is 220, so the flying one is more than double the price of the normal Engine Master. The Engine Master himself has a rather sad little range attack with 9-inch range. 1 attack, 3 is to hit, 2 is to wound, 1 rend, D3 damage. And his melee weapon is just very much slightly worse than that of his flying counterpart, with 3 attacks, 3s and 3s, -1 D3 damage. His one advantage is, however, that he can be inside one of your sky vessels rather than flying outside of it.
Risk getting shot as well, so it saves him a little bit from that.
Yes. Interestingly enough, it has been clarified as per the designer's commentary that models within the sky vessel still also benefit from Lookout Sir, meaning that a foot character inside a sky vessel is at -2 to hit and +1 armor.
So if I'm targeting, sorry, just in case I must have missed this, if I'm targeting a sky vessel and there's a let's say an engine master inside the sky vessel, can I target that engine master, or do I have to target the sky vessel?
Yes, you can target any unit that is inside the sky vessel as long as the sky vessel itself is within your range.
Got you. Okay, because yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because it would be a bit unfair if they can shoot out, but you can't shoot back.
Yeah. So normally every unit inside the sky vessel has +1 to the armor save and is subtracts 1 from hit rolls against them. In this case, benefiting from Lookout Sir means that he subtracts another 1 from hit rolls in the shooting phase against him.
So let's say he's in an Ironclad. There's also 10 ARKANAUT company in there. He's subtracting 1 from Lookout Sir because they're going to be within, 3 inches of him or 1 inch?
Exactly.
Is Lookout Sir, is that 1 inch or 3 inch?
3 inch.
3 inch, cool. And is it a unit of 5 or more models, isn't
it? 3 or more, actually.
3 or more, is it? Okay. And right, cool. So this guy obviously heals up your ships, which is good.
Yeah, and his other little detail is he has, Brock Grungnison's combat ability, as in with his special Endrin harness, but slightly improved. On a hit roll of 6, his melee attacks inflict a flat 3 mortal wounds.
That's good.
That's nice. And please keep in mind that you can still melee out of sky vessels. So imagine that guy standing on the railing, swinging his hammer like he's playing croquet with the heads of his enemies. I find that hilarious.
Yeah, it's like I said, I've only fought against these guys a few times, but the first time I ever fought them was at a tournament, and I was massively caught off by surprise with this guy. I thought he was just a support character. He charged in. I think he got 2 6s to hit, and I can't remember if it was just a flat 3 mortal wounds back then, but it must have been because I remember him doing like an insane amount of damage to me from just like one little guy, and I was like, underestimated him massively.
Yeah, the support characters for Kharadron Overlords are surprisingly fighty in melee, though not the most durable with their low wound counts.
But a dwarf with 6 wounds though is not bad.
Yes. That's fairly decent.
But it's though he's got like an exoskeleton on the back of him, isn't he? So
yeah, though he is one of the few that comes with a 4 save only.
Yeah, that's true. And then you have his command ability, don't you?
Yeah, it's by Grogny, I've got my eyes on you. So he's pretty much the overseer of your little Endrinrigger squads. He makes sure they try twice as hard to heal your sky vessels, allowing them to re-roll their D6 rolls in each hero phase that heal a friendly sky vessel on each 4-up by 1 wound. That's fairly simple. It's not all that impressive an ability, but it helps in case you need some extra healing on your sky vessels.
And hopefully it's something that you won't forget. Like you say, it's simple.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so is there anything else to say for the standard Engine Master?
I've just finished painting mine. He's a beautiful, beautiful model, a lot of fun to paint. Yeah, he is great. When you get him, get creative with him.
Nice. Cool. So that is him, and then moving on to the next one. What should we go for? The Chemist, Navigator, or Admiral? The Admiral's currently temporarily out of stock online, so I imagine he's alright.
Yes, the Admiral. Let's pick the Admiral.
Cool. He's got a big mallet as well. There's a theme here, isn't there? Big hammers.
Yes, small dwarfs with big hammers. That's your hero lineup.
Yeah. Just remind me of the Rumour Engine pictures how many mallets there are. But right, so the Admiral. So I would naturally think the leader of your army being the Admiral, but we'll see.
In many cases, he at least acts like a leader, whether or not you make him the actual leader of your list, not withstanding.
Yeah.
But his myriad of command abilities certainly make him feel like a leader. Starting with his profile, he has a sad dwarf move of 4, very standard for dwarves on foot. A 3-up save, which is fantastic. 6 wounds, 8 bravery, and I probably forgot to mention it, but I guess listeners are already sick of it. But he, of course, has an ether gold because he's a hero.
Yeah, well, it's important to remember.
Yes. Significant is, in this case, one of the triumphs that people tend to forget, is one of the triumphs allows the use of a command ability without the expenditure of a command point.
Yes.
So that's probably one you're going to use on him a lot. His ranged profile is, again, the Sadness with a range of 9. 3 attacks, 3s and 4s, -1 damage. It's okay. It's nothing great. You might forget to shoot with him once or twice.
Yeah.
I certainly did. Because his shooting attack is nothing you really plan around, it's just something nice on top of your other shooting.
If he happens to be in combat with a small enemy unit fighting to get the objective, and you need to be able to draw with the amount of models of the enemy or wipe that small unit out completely, it's extra attacks, isn't it? Like, it could help.
Yes. However, his melee capabilities are great. He has 3 attacks, 3 up, 2 up, -2, 2 damage. Fantastic. On average, that's going to do 4 damage. Fairly reliable. Most of the time, I actually say it does even 6. The full 6 he's capable of. Because, again, that's the Sky Endrinrigger profile, but with flat 2 damage instead of D3.
Yeah.
So, great melee character, just nothing to complain about. Now, his abilities is where he gets even better. His first ability is, I love it, if you want a job done, ... allowing him to reroll hit rolls of both hit and wound rolls of 1 for attacks against heroes and monsters. So you can play him as a duelist or a monster hunter.
Yeah, reroll on hit rolls of 1s and wounds of 1, especially when you win on 2s.
Yep, there's almost no way of not wounding with your melee weapon.
I mean, you have to be extremely unlucky, which is just going to jinx your next game.
Yes. But his next rule is, I think, the most significant one, and that is how you are going to hold objectives if you're deciding on the ARKANAUT heavy playstyle. And that is protect the Admiral. Do not take battleshot casts for friendly Kharadron Overlords units while they're wholly within 12 of him. So he is a walking, inspiring presence for every unit nearby. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's just amazing.
Because usually that's like a command trait you would spend to do that, or an artifact. The fact that he can just do it.
Yes. And on top of that, he isn't even that easy to snipe out, because every time you would allot a wound or mortal wound to him, he can instead select instead he has to select a friendly ARKANAUT unit or Skyfarer unit within 3 of him with 5 or more models, and on a 5-up, that model is instead taken by said Skyfarer's unit, as they just jump in front of the bullet for him.
Which is cool, you know. It's basically a fully lookout, sir. A couple of things like you said, you have to do it. You don't have a choice. Also, just another thing, because it has to be, 5 or more models. Let's say it's an ARKANAUT company with 5 models left in it, and the enemy goes, it's within. When you allocate, let's say you've got 3 wounds to allocate to this guy, and you've got that unit of 5 models next to him. Don't roll the 3 dice. Roll 1 at a time, because you could drop that unit down to below 5, where this ability would no longer be in effect.
Exactly. I like this because it makes them hard to snipe out. Because if your enemy has a problem getting through your ARKANAUTs with their 4-up save, 10 wounds for 90 points, they will definitely try to get this guy dead.
How much the ARKANAUT company again?
90 points.
That's solid. That's good.
Yes. Now, this is exactly why they and him are your victory point protection squad, as they get a better profile standing on a victory objective, and he makes them immune to battle shock, pretty much saying you don't have to move anywhere. So if you really want to lock down an objective, fly any transport ship with enough capacity up, drop your admiral and drop your ARKANAUT company, and that objective is yours.
Yeah.
So coming to his command abilities, there are quite a few of them, and I'll probably just have to resort to reading them all. This first one is Master of the Skies. You can use this command ability at the start of the shooting phase. If you do so, pick one friendly sky vessel that has a model with this command ability in its garrison. That sky vessel can shoot in that phase even if it ran earlier in the same turn. So for most of these, he actually needs to be inside a ship. In this case, the first one allows the ship to run and shoot. Decent. Not necessary, because most of your ships can deep strike and shoot. But in case you're limping about with a severely wounded sky vessel that can no longer fly high, it can be useful. Though I'm not a fan of that one.
No, yes.
Yeah, his second one is On My Mark Fire. You can use this command ability at the start of the shooting phase. If you do so, pick one friendly sky vessel that has a model with this command ability in its garrison. You can reroll hit rolls of 1 for attacks made by that sky vessel in that phase. Which is, well, it's effectively the ordinary volley fire command ability. The significance here of having it on his war scroll is that he has access to an artifact that allows him to regain command points when he uses a command trait that is on his war scroll. So some of these abilities are actually just ordinary ones, but on his war scroll, so that he can use that artifact more reliably. The next one is one of his better ones, in my opinion, Repel Borders. You can use this command ability at the start of the combat phase. If you do so, pick one friendly sky vessel that has this model, the model with this command ability in its garrison. Add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by that sky vessel and any models in its garrison in that phase. So, when you have that one ship stuffed to the brim with heroes, that's gonna hurt.
Yes. I just imagine just stuffing one of those little, what are they called, GRUNDSTOKs? What are the small baby?
The GUNHAULER.
The GUNHAULER.
With 5 heroes.
For 5 heroes, just send it in the enemy, just fucking put this on it. And the enemy, I wouldn't see it coming if I was fighting against it. If they told me there was like 5 admirals and there were 5 engine, whatever, I'd just go, yeah, sure there are. And then he would actually do it and go, oh, you're serious, okay. Yeah, it sounds a load of fun. Just invest all your leaders into that one model.
Yeah, well, it's significant to say is your melee capabilities are not great, at least not for models that can be inside sky vessels, so it mostly benefits heroes and ARKANAUT companies, which have a 4-up. Decent, but yeah, it helps. It certainly helps.
Yeah. And then the last ones are up and at them.
Yes, you can use command ability at the start of your charge phase. If you do so, pick one friendly Skyfarer unit that is wholly within 12 of a friendly model with this command ability. You can reroll charge rolls for that unit in that phase. Again, an ordinary command ability that is on his war scroll for the purposes of an artifact. Not a fan that they had to do it this way, but oh well.
Yeah.
But as you can see, he is the one model that's going to fling your command points around the table.
Yeah, it's cool but it's good that he's got multiple. I mean, off the top of my head, I'm thinking the Demon Prince can do it. I'm struggling to think of what else have multiple commander with. There's a few other ones out there, like Liege Cavios, and I think he's got the main character one has. But so it's cool. He's got options on him. So are we thinking your standard lists? Are we thinking Admiral?
Yeah, I would think most lists want to include one Admiral. Simply because of his Ignore Battle Shocks wholly within 12 of them. He is a great asset for your foot sloggers.
Yeah. And then, yeah, cool. Well, that's him. And then moving on to the Ether Chemist.
The Ether Chemist. This this guy got really hit hard by this new book.
Did he? Because I remember people talking quite positive about him before the new book.
He was what made the old Kharadron Overlords work. Your army would stand and fall with the Ether Chemist and how you used him. Previously, he used to be able to add 1 to the attacks characteristics of a chosen weapon in each hero phase. That was very strong, and the way you usually used him was with Skyhook Cheese, a maxed out unit of ARKANAUTs with 12 Skyhooks, doubling shots to 24 shots on 3s, 2s, -2 D3. That's no longer possible.
Yeah.
His ability got changed to instead allow you, or rather, a selected Skyfarer's unit that is not part of a garrison within 12 of him, or rather wholly within 12 of him, to reroll wound rolls of 1. So this new ability it's decent, but what makes it rather meh is that it cannot target units that are inside of a garrison, and that's where your hitting power is going to be. In most cases. Because if you bring Thunderers, you will most likely want to have them inside Sky Vessels. So this guy... Yeah, this ability isn't as great as it used to be.
It's one of those things where you're reading it, aren't you, and you're thinking, I can make this work. This is quite good. Put this guy into the Ironclad or any of the ships. Yeah, could make this work. And then it's the second part that goes, this ability cannot be used by any because it's part of a. And you just think, okay, the idea I had to use him is out of my head.
Yeah. The same applies for the second ability, which subtracts 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by enemy models while they are within 3 of any friendly models with this ability. Again, does not work when he is part of a garrison.
So it's like, basically, if you don't want to take ships, you just want to go on foot, which I imagine is not a good way to run these guys. His shooting attack, short range, but it's not bad.
Yeah, his shooting attack, when you have lucky rolls or spend your ether gold to help the odds, he has quite some oomph behind his shooting. Sadly, he also suffers from the sadness with a 9-inch range.
4s and 4s as well.
-2 rend though at
That's the
3d6 shots.
Yeah, that's the best part. But however, like, how many points is this guy?
I think he's also 90 points.
I mean, there's better things to have to spend 90 points on in this army.
Yes, however...
I don't really see much use to this guy.
However, this guy comes with my new favorite artifact in the entire game.
Is that the bottle?
Yes, it's the spell in a bottle, and I'd like to cover it just very shortly.
Absolutely.
This artifact allows you to pick an endless spell. Any endless spell. All restrictions for who can field or cast that endless spell can be ignored. Period. You still have to pay the points for it, though.
Yep.
And in one of your hero phases, the Ether Chemist can open the bottle and thereby automatically successfully cast said endless spell, and said endless spell cannot be unbound. Period.
So the question is, the Skaven Vortex, will it work?
Yes.
Cool. And when you say unbound, basically you're going against Nagash of each, you go, no, I don't care how good your unbinding rolls are, you're not stopping me. I didn't cast it, I released it from this bottle.
Exactly. So Everblaze Comet, no problem. Malevolent Moon, there you go. Skaven Vortex, happy pickings.
It's crazy, like the how you capture the spell in the jar. It's like the comet. It's like you almost you'd imagine that he cracks open the jar, the burst of light shoots into the sky, and then somehow goes into the clouds, and then turns into an asteroid, and then comes down.
I'd like to think that he has some stuff inside his bottle that allows him to manipulate the ether in the wind to drop the comet down on their enemies, but that's headcanon.
But the thing is like when I first heard of this ability, I was like, what, him casting like a Skaven's? It just didn't sit well with me. But then I see it's like, actually there's loads of cool narrative behind this. Which is, however, that is the only reason you bring this guy, isn't it? So you're paying for him, and you're also paying for the points that end the spell.
Yeah, pretty much.
What happens when the enemy unbinds it? Can you set up again?
No, once the enemy has then dispelled the enter spell and their hero phase, that's that.
Yeah, so you're using this to do the best ender spells out there. You're not using this to go, oh, this might be useful. It's like it, so you're talking the Vortex, something that I might, consider as the Palisade, maybe, to stop the enemy trying to advance from a flank or something. You're basically what I'm trying to say is you're using it to cast the best spells.
He's your tactical wild card.
Yeah. But you're paying for it. How many? Well, I don't suppose you know how many points the Vortex is for the Skaven, do you?
100 points.
Okay, that's quick. So 190 points
For a guaranteed Skaven Vortex spell. And the problem of which is that it only takes effect in the movement phase, which means the enemy has a chance to dispel it first.
Yes. They do that. It's quite a high casting though, isn't it?
I think it requires a 9 to be dispelled.
Yeah, so I mean technically it's a Skaven, so I think it should be a 13. But with that, if the enemy doesn't manage to get off, essentially they're trapped in their deployment zone or whatever.
Yes, units that are within range of this Skaven spell cannot run and cannot fly, so it also would disable a possible threat to your sky vessels and flyers.
Yes, but if you don't think about that from for now, what you've got essentially is you've trapped the enemy against a shooting army.
Yes, which is also why you might consider cheaper spells like the Scuttletide, for example, which behaves like a wall that does mortal wounds when someone tries to move around it and doesn't block line of sight.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of options here. I love it. It's my favorite artifact in the game. Sadly, on a by now lackluster character.
Yes. However, if you go for one of the sky ports, I imagine they select an artifact for you.
Yes.
So you would then so you would then have to take a battalion to get an extra artifact. And then, so you're paying for that battalion, you're paying for this guy, and then you're paying for it. It's good, but there's a lot of hoops you're jumping through to get it. Or you don't go Skyport, and you don't go Skyport to be able to take an artifact for. It's good, but there's a lot of hoops.
Exactly. However, there are some Skyports which say that if your first character is X, then he has to take. Mm-hmm. Y artifact or command trait.
So you're saying if you take a named character?
Well, there are some ways to dodge the restrictions for command traits and artifacts in the Skyports. That's rather unique, I think. I haven't seen that before myself.
But but that in itself is a loophole, isn't it? So it might get. I wouldn't rely on it too much.
Yes. For example, if your Barak Orba's general is an ether chemist, he has to take Chemist Supreme. Meaning, if your general is any other hero, you can still select from your full range of command traits.
Yeah.
So you can cheat the system, which is very Kharadron Overlord, like you obey the letter of the code, not its spirit.
Yeah, well, exactly, isn't it? Right, so like I say, that's the reason you would take the Ether Chemist for that one. There's no other real reason apart from that spell. I imagine there are a lot of Ether Chemists knocking around from what they used to be like the Kharadron Overlords. And then we move on to the Navigator. So this is the Etheric Navigator, is that right?
Etheric Navigator, yes. Etheric. And I would say that probably each army wants at least one of them, unless you're playing Baragnar. Because the Etheric Navigator is the only model in this army that can spell endless spells.
So you can unbind and get rid of endless spells.
That's yes. No other model in this entire book can do that unless you're playing Barak Nar, which allows all your heroes to do just that with a +1. Which would then boost this guy to be able to dispel 2 spells at a +1. So you might even still want one in Barak Nar. On top of that, his profile is decent. Has 5 up save, but only 3 up saves, but only 5 wounds. His shooting and melee weapons are forgettable at best.
Yep.
The only significance is in his ranging pistol hitting on 3s, which might be important because another artifact. I have to state at this point that this book contains my most favorite artifact in the entire game system.
Is that the Curse of Years?
No, he has a flare pistol artifact,
All right.
which on his first ever hit roll triggers and allows all other units shooting at the same target in that shooting phase to reroll all their hit rolls. So basically he's illuminating the target with his little flare pistol. He doesn't have to wound for it, he just has to hit for it. And on a 3-up with 2 shots, that's likely.
That's
It is,
good.
however,
I like that.
yeah, it is, however, only the very first shot he ever lands in a game. From that onward, it's no longer usable.
So you can't just go, I'm going to use the shots now halfway through the game or something. It has to be.
No.
So make sure he shoots the right thing. Does he? Sorry, did he have to hit? Is that all the only?
Yes, you have to hit. This is kind of a trend with the Kharadron Overlords. They have a lot of once per game aces up their sleeve, which you have to consider how to spend, from ether golds over footnotes to artifacts. That's a very thematic thing for them. Once per game, when do I expend this? I love it. And I probably said that way too much.
No, that's fine. Yeah, that's pretty. Well, it helps the whole army, isn't it? Which is good. And to be honest, this guy 2 attacks, 3s to hit. He's gonna get one of those when he needs it. 15-inch range, needs to waddle up there a little bit. With the 3-up save, he can get quite close to the enemy. Can't really be a problem.
Yeah, you can even put him on the Sky Vessel because why not?
Exactly. So
on top of that,
yep.
he also comes with an ether gold. So his ether gold is most likely spent on using ordinary command ability without expending a command point. I can see no much better use for ether gold on him, sadly.
No, I mean, like I say, he's going to unbind that spell, and in the spell, he can do funny things to the enemy's movement.
Yes, his 2 other rules are about controlling movement. Let's start with the shorter one, Read the Wind. You can reroll 1 and charge rolls for friendly sky vessels that are visible to a friendly etheric navigator that has not attempted to use Ether Storm, which is his other ability in this turn.
So he just has to see them, so he can be on the other side of the board and see them.
Yes, you can have him stand thematically on the top of a little hill in the corner of the table and provide instructions over their little ether walkie-talkie, I suppose.
Yeah, what's the Skaven? They call it a squeaker, don't they?
I think so.
Speaker.
Probably.
A speakerphone. Yeah, so I imagine the dwarves have a maybe more sophisticated birth, but depends who you ask. So that's good. And then the Ether Storm, which is... yep, I like it.
Yeah, it's another reason why you might bring him, because he can severely annoy your enemy flying units. So it's pretty much works like a prayer roll. That in the hero phase you pick an enemy unit that can fly and is visible to him within 36 inches. So the range is fantastic, huge. And on a 1 to 2, nothing happens. On a 3 to 5, you have that model's movement characteristic. And on a 6, you do D3 model 2 wounds on top of that. Which is great to cripple that one dangerous flyer your enemy might have, like a vampire lord on a zombie dragon that's now all of a sudden moving 6.
You know, an Arkan, that Terrorgeist, it's 36 inches is huge. That's well, I know it's in your hero phase, isn't it? I was going to say, we say 36, or is it 40? But no, it is 36, it's your hero phase. But
yeah, and for an army that wins in the movement phase, that's great. Because this army wins in the movement and in the shooting phase. When you have the mobility advantage over your opponent, you win. And this character helps you to keep that advantage.
yeah, and also, like, you don't, when you set up this model, you don't say, oh, by the way, this guy can half your movement and all that sort of thing. Just, the enemy doesn't know, the enemy doesn't know.
Well, if they ask, of course, you have to tell them.
Oh, yeah, of course. But I mean, like, I'm just saying, it's something that would catch me by surprise. It would go, now I'm going to do the Ether Storm. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and one would think, oh yeah, it's a tiny little ability, targets one flyer, whatever. But when all of a sudden your big, expensive flying monster is crawling at the very back of your army,
Yeah,
do you not
or
think?
yeah, and what you said earlier, Nighthaunt, or your big unit of chain rasps. Well, they're walking
Hmm.
essentially. So that's, and then the D6 mortal wounds. Sorry, D3 mortal wound potential. I wouldn't focus on that, but it's an added bonus.
Yes, he is overall a great character. He has a great choice of artifacts. He has also another one of the artifacts I very much adore, but that is, however, locked behind a skypod, which is the Gale Wind Staff. And I want to mention it here because it is, in my opinion, one of the most powerful artifacts ever created. That it allows him to select at the beginning of each enemy charge phase an enemy unit that is within 12 of him and halve their charge rolls. Meaning that your opponent can only ever charge a maximum of 6 inches. That is phenomenal.
That's great. Yeah,
Any,
I like
anything
that.
that's further than 6 is impossible to accomplish.
And then that means, because obviously you get 3 inches away from the enemy, to try and charge, and it's like, well, there's a third of the chance you're not making this charge.
Yeah, it means a 4 fails, a 5 makes it due to only being able due to only requiring half an inch distance when you
Like,
finish a charge.
yeah, like we say, this game is a movement game, Age of Sigmar, and the fact that the Kharadron Overlords have got good movement because they're movement shenanigans, and the fact that they can affect the enemy movement means that they have got plays.
Yes. So since we now have covered all the models, in essence, this is an army that moves amazingly, is incredibly mobile, tries to limit their opponent's movement, and tries to shoot them down, and has a lot of once per game abilities and resources to spend wherever appropriate.
Yes,
And
it's not as straightforward as before with Artificer's army. I just think clown car, something like that, or just think big enemy ship's gonna shoot me. It's a bit more to it than that. There's a lot of, like we just said, tricks up your sleeve, that sort of thing. So now that we sort of, like, at the start of the video, we sort of talked about the lore and roughly what the army's like on the table, and then the second half of the video we've sort of done a more extensive look at the war scrolls and how this is used, so we've gone a bit more in depth. So if people still listen to this, there's a good chance they might want to start the army. So how would you suggest they would start the army then, Max?
at this point, I would say the start collecting box isn't as bad as it used to be. So first of all, you should look at what skypod you want to start with, if any, and then see to get that battle line requirement first. So if you get your hands on an Ether War box, that's fantastic, because you have a general inside of it, a character inside of it, that if he is your general, makes 2 of the other kids included your battle line. So for 1,000 point game, you already had your general, 2 battle line requirements fulfilled, plus a small ship. That's a great start. But if you want to go to your first 1,000 point games, I would advise expanding the list by getting at least 5 Thunderers, and then fill up with whatever you wish. If you cannot get your hands on an Ether War box, the start collecting box is a good place to start. But then you have to decide on which skypod you want to run. Because if you don't want to run any that enable you to pick the little ship inside of it as battle line, or the Thunderers that are in it as battle line, you have to buy 2 to 3 boxes of ARKANAUT Company with that. Otherwise, you don't have a legal list to play with.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's good advice. So you can still get hold of the Ether War box that we're saying it's worth it, yeah?
Yes, the Ether War box is worth it. It comes with 2 Skyrigger kits, which can either be the ENDRINRIGGERS or the Skywardens. It comes with the new character, which is as of now exclusive to the box. And it comes with the GRUNDSTOK GUNHAULER, as well as a unique battalion that has actual rules for match play. That is a first, I believe.
Nice. I think the Bone Reapers had one as well, but it's good to see that these big boxes are having battalions that are feasible in match play, because they used to not do that, and used to be like, oh, here's a battalion. Oh, I can never really use it. Just one
Also,
more. Sorry.
it's like, just to expand a bit on the box also comes with ether gold markers.
Oh, nice.
Which is fantastic. It comes with a cardboard measuring stick for up to 9 inches. So if you don't have something to measure with yet, that's also in there.
You're going to want to get yourself a 9-inch range for this army.
Yeah, you pretty much can put that down on the edge of an enemy base and just say, outside of that, that's where I'm going to appear.
Yeah, because it's always awkward trying to do it with a tape measure, isn't it? It's like when you try and measure 3 inches with a tape measure. I know a lot of people do it, but like, get a combat cage. You know what I mean? It just makes life easier. You spend so much money on the models anyway.
Yes. So, especially if you have a friend that might want to start a Zinj, get the Ether War box. It's a perfect place to start.
Cool, fantastic. And I've got a question, not relevant to any of that. However, you know when troops are garrisoned inside one of these ships?
Mm-hmm.
Is it the hull, or can they go in the little balloons, or are they just filled with gas and air and everything?
The balloons are filled with the Endrin and the Ether Gold. So the balloons is where the ship's engine is, pretty much.
So when you've got like the little admiral or the navigator who's on top of the balloon in his little crow's nest, how does he get up there?
He's probably climbing up there, or he's helped by one of the little balloon boys.
Cool, that's fine. That's that question done. Right, okay. So that is pretty much it. So I was going to ask what sort of advice you would give to anyone who was still thinking if they should do it or not. What's the last little summary you would say on them?
I'd like to add a little thing about painting them.
Yep, go ahead.
Because when you look at them and all their depictions by Games Workshop, when you think, that's a lot of metallic paints. They look
challenging. Like they look like they're going to be quite time consuming.
Yeah, or rather, you might not like all that much metallic. You don't have to. You can paint their armor in different colors and say they are lacquered armors, and it looks fantastic. Mine usually wear lacquered red helmets, and I love it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, if you don't like metallics, you don't have to go metallics. They can have lacquered armor. That's something most people don't think about when they're new painters. They look at the box and think, all right, that's probably how it's going to be. But no, you can be really creative with those guys, even though it doesn't appear that way when you first start with them.
Don't be put off by the paint scheme, essentially.
Yes.
Cool. Well, with that, I think that's the end of the video. It's been quite an in-depth one, so it's been great. It's been great having you on, Max, having your sort of thoughts of the army, because you're very new to the army as well. You've been trying to get as much games in as you can and stuff. You've had a few games, haven't you?
I've played 4 games with them so far, all the 1,000 points range, because I'm still painting up everything else. Mm-hmm. And I have that weird thing where I don't bring unpainted models.
Weirdo.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking. I think we all wish we could be like that, to a degree. I used to have that rule, and then it's broken. Nothing goes in a cabinet until it's fully painted, though. That's like the last clench of hope I have. Right, okay. So yeah, I want to say a special thank you to you. Yeah, it's been great, and it's been great to get a lot of insight. Because, like I say, when I do these sort of videos that are about armies, I personally don't, collect and play with, unlike the Slaves of Darkness and the Legion of Nagash, which I do. I'm very comfortable talking about them to you guys. But when it's an army I don't, such as Kharadron Overlords, Chaos Dwarfs, etc., it's nice to have other people on the channel rather than me just trying to gather the information I can get on the internet, which, quite frankly, is available to yourselves. I always like to lean more on people's personal experiences. So, yeah, thank you for giving that to us, Max. Really much appreciate it. If you're still watching,
pleasure.
No worries. Yeah, if you're still listening, thank you very much for watching this. If you would like to help out the channel, please like, subscribe, and comment down below if you did enjoy the video. It's all absolutely free for you to do so, and massively does help. If you'd like to support the channel a step further, please consider being a Patreon. And I wanted to say a special thank you to my patrons, and a special thank you to, I won't say his full name, but I believe first name is Oliver, who is a recent Patreon. And thank you very much for signing up, mate. It really does help for me to be able to provide the content for everyone to enjoy. Okay, guys, so remember, until next time, Nagash is all, and all is one. in Nagash.